Every single morning, millions of us do the exact same thing. We walk right past a perfectly good gas station, or even our own fully stocked kitchens, just to go and willingly pay 5 times more for a single cup of coffee. Have you ever actually stopped to think about why? Like, what are the invisible forces driving this daily routine? Well, today, in this explainer, we are tearing down the facade of the world's most famous coffee cup. We're going to dive into the engineered psychology, the sensory manipulation, and the brilliant economic architecture that turned a simple morning habit into an absolute global empire. So, why pay 5 times more? If you're sitting there thinking it's just because the beans are somehow 5 times better than the alternative, well, you've kind of already fallen for the trap. Because the premium you're paying has very little to do with the actual agricultural product inside that cup. It's a psychological masterpiece that's entirely designed to make you feel something very specific. The absolute truth here, and really the foundation for this whole explainer, is that Starbucks isn't actually in the coffee business at all. They are masters of selling a transformation. They fundamentally alter the DNA of the neighborhoods they set up shop in. And as we're going to see a bit later, they secretly operate as one of the most powerful financial institutions on the planet. But to understand how they hack your behavior today, we need to look at how this entire machine was built. Part 1. The origin, the Milan Epiphany. Let's rewind the clock back to 1971. If you walked into the original Starbucks at Seattle's Pike Place Market back then, you couldn't even buy a brewed cup of coffee to go. Honestly, it's hard to even imagine that now, right? The founders just weren't interested in your morning commute. They were strictly wholesalers, selling high-quality beans and equipment to serious coffee aficionados. And that was their exact model for an entire decade. But then, in the early 1980s, a marketing director named Howard Schultz took a business trip to Milan, Italy. He walked into a local espresso bar and saw something that was completely missing from American culture, a real community hub. The barista knew everyone's name. The air was just buzzing with conversation. It wasn't about getting a caffeine fix. It was about human connection. Schultz ended up buying the company in 1987, and he brought that vibrant Italian culture straight to the States. Howard Schultz had this radical realization. He famously said, "We aren't in the coffee business serving people. We are in the people business serving coffee." Now sure, that might sound a bit like corporate marketing fluff, but it was actually a genius sociological blueprint. He stopped focusing on the physical product and instead tapped into the human spirit. He figured out that to achieve global dominance, he literally had to change where we spend our lives. Which brings us to part 2, the blueprint, the third place. They didn't just invent a new type of coffee shop, they managed to seize entirely new psychological real estate. They became the first brand in the industry to successfully mass-produce this concept of the third place. Think about it. Your first place is your home. Your second place is your workplace. This third place is an informal, highly inclusive public gathering spot that gives you deep psychological comfort right between the other two. It's a free zone. And this is exactly where the underlying strategy gets wonderfully ruthless, because they introduced a crucial metric known as dwell time. For decades, competitors like Dunkin' built a highly transactional model. It was all about getting you in and getting you out as fast as possible. Think fluorescent lights, hard seats, fast service. Starbucks did the exact opposite. They designed their stores specifically for lounging. They brought in plush sofas, warm ambient lighting, and, this was huge, free Wi-Fi. They actively wanted you to stay. Why? Because the psychology of dwell time is brilliantly simple. The longer you sit in that chair, the more embedded the brand becomes in your daily routine. And suddenly, paying $6 stops feeling like an absurd luxury for hot bean water. Because here's the crucial takeaway. They are reframing the value in your own mind. You aren't actually buying coffee. You're paying a $6 rental fee for a private workspace, a meeting room, or just a comfortable sanctuary for an hour. But how exactly do they make you feel so comfortable that you completely lose track of time? Part 3. Sensory warfare, branding psychology. The sheer scale of this manipulation is honestly staggering. They engage all 5 of your senses in a highly coordinated assault just to create lingering memories. It is a completely engineered environment that bypasses your logical brain entirely. Let's break these down, starting with the absolute most powerful one. Smell. The very second you open that heavy door, the deep aroma of roasted coffee just hits you, right? Well, that is not an accident. Neuroscientists have actually found that 75% of our human emotions are generated by smell. Your olfactory nerve has a direct, completely unobstructed path to your limbic system. That's the exact part of your brain that controls emotion, memory, and happiness. Now combine that with sight. The stores are bathed in their proprietary green color. Psychologically, owning a specific color like that can boost brand recognition by up to 75%. So your brain is already feeling at home before you've even spoken a single word to a barista. Then comes the rest of the sensory stack. Let's look at sound. Baristas are specifically trained to ask for and use your name. Psychologically speaking, hearing your own name is the sweetest sound in the world to your brain. Add in the curated background music, whether it's Baroque or specific rhythmic beats, it's all perfectly designed to arouse a vibrant, energetic vibe. Then there's touch. You aren't just holding a paper cup. Having the option of heavy ceramic mugs and feeling the soft upholstery of those sofas are textural cues that literally scream luxury. And finally, taste, which is entirely personalized. Their just say yes policy means they will remake absolutely any drink, no questions asked. They really aren't just selling you a beverage, they are actively hacking your brain's reward centers so that you crave this daily ritual.
Part 4. The Starbucks Effect. The Neighborhood Anchor.
Now, the impact of this sensory manipulation doesn't just stay in your head. Let's pivot for a second and look at how this psychological anchor impacts macroeconomics. It actually creates money out of thin air for the physical neighborhoods they enter. Economists call this data the Starbucks effect. When a Starbucks opens up in a neighborhood that previously had no coffee shops, local entrepreneurship in that specific area increases by up to 22.5% over the next 7 years. Why does that happen? Because by providing that third place, a comfortable physical space with Wi-Fi where people can meet, brainstorm, and work, Starbucks literally transforms into the social infrastructure of the local economy. This exact effect was leveraged brilliantly back in 1998. Magic Johnson actually approached Howard Schultz and convinced him to bring the brand into underserved minority neighborhoods like Harlem. See, Johnson deeply understood the psychology of the brand. He knew that a shiny new Starbucks would serve as a really powerful economic signal to other business leaders that the area was poised for growth and completely safe for investment. And you know what? He was totally right. In those specific Magic Johnson partnerships, the increase in local startups was even higher, skyrocketing by a massive 26.7%.
Part 5. The Strategic Reset. Back to Starbucks. But even an empire this calculated can eventually lose its soul. Success, as they say, can be a real trap. Leading up to 2025, the company had become overwhelmingly transactional. The introduction of the mobile ordering app was financially brilliant on paper, but in practice, it was a disaster for the third-place vibe. Customers were literally abandoning their orders because the tranquil sanctuary they loved suddenly felt like a chaotic, crowded train station. It was losing its experiential heart. So, in late 2024 and 2025, they initiated a ruthless back to Starbucks reset. Step 1, they brought in a brand new CEO, Brian Niccol. Step 2, they aggressively closed 627 underperforming stores that were failing to meet their high third-place standards. And Step 3, they completely slashed 30% of their menu to shed all the bloat, speed up the service, and really return focus to that human connection with their Green Apron partners. Basically, they had to simplify.
Part 6. The Final Insight, the Shadow Bank. Here is where this explainer takes its most fascinating turn yet. Because even as they try to simplify the coffee and restore that cozy vibe, the company has secretly evolved into something else entirely. The ultimate paradigm shift is this: billions. Through their mobile app and rewards program, customers are actively incentivized to preload money onto their accounts. Think about your own phone right now for a second. Do you have $10 or maybe $20 sitting on a digital Starbucks card? Because millions of people do. By late 2025, this stored value card liability had reached billions of dollars in floating cash. They take in your real money, they give you digital coffee currency in return, and they just hold on to the cash. In the eyes of many financial experts, this effectively makes them a massive, unregulated, multi-billion-dollar banking liability. They literally started as a wholesale bean seller in Seattle, morphed into a psychological community center, and have somehow ended up as a massive financial tech giant. Yet beneath all those billions and digital float, beneath the sensory warfare and the macroeconomic neighborhood signals, this entire empire balances on one really profound psychological truth. In a digital world, we are all starving for human connection. This massive, calculated corporate machine thrives simply because it taps into our deepest vulnerability, loneliness. We just want a place to belong. And for that fleeting feeling of connection, beautifully wrapped in a green logo, we will happily pay $6 for a cup of coffee. It really makes you look at your morning cup a little differently, doesn't it?